I know we're going to have people still coming, but we're going to get it started so we can respect everybody's time. My name is Iggy. I'm the Executive Director of United Football Academy. Today we have Coach Valco, our Academy Director and DOC. Jason is in charge of our elite program and curriculum. I want to welcome everybody. Can I just ask real quick, how many of you are new to UFA? A year or two? All right, good. So the idea for this meeting, before I give the floor to Jason, is, as everybody knows, the world of football is bringing us to a change again. I think a couple of years ago we had the change, and now we're changing again. But what is important for us, the reason we wanted to have this town hall is, information is important. We want to make sure that you guys have a little bit of an idea of what we are thinking about doing as an organization. We always want to communicate with our players and parents and families, so you have an idea, what is the game plan going forward. Especially with many of you guys, before you go to high school, we want to make sure that you get enough information. So you have the time to circle back, ask questions. I think we sent an email or a survey with some potential questions, correct, Marco?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So again, there's no silly question. Hopefully today you may have more questions you can always ask. And as we go through the process, we're going to facilitate the transition and so forth. So again, thank you for coming. We're going to go straight through it. And Jason will start our presentation.
Thank you. All right, real quick, I imagine most of you have seen this presentation online already, so I'll jump through it fairly quickly. I do apologize. I was a little stiff. I heard myself sleeping last night. One joke was probably the worst. One of the worst injuries I've had in recent years. So, can't look to my right, all that good. Anyway, so we're going to jump here real quick. Just something we put together. It wasn't done casually. We've been talking about this ever since the discussion started coming out from US Soccer. So it's not something we just jumped into. But we did want to make sure we started by informing mainly the kids that are going to be going away to high school, because they may miss an opportunity later to hear sort of a plan of action. So just jump through so everybody knows what's going on. It's working fine. There we go. Okay, so as you know, there's going to be an age group shift. About 10 years ago, we were basically grouped according to your academic year. And US Soccer, in its infinite wisdom, decided that they wanted to shift to the birth year simply because they felt like we were not going as well on the youth international stage at the time because a lot of our kids were aging differently. When we talk about kids and their development, a lot of times we refer to where they're born within the year. Like a Q1 is somebody born in the first quarter, a Q4. And they do studies to figure out who makes it as a pro. Under the birth year system, those people born in the second half of the year, the Q3s and Q4s, if they make it all the way to a pro, generally they're the most successful pros. So they were trying to find ways to make sure they weren't losing sight of those in comparison to the rest of the world. The irony is, the youth soccer system in the United States is very different than the rest of the world. I wouldn't say it's the end game, but we really think about trying to go on and play in college. Our ECNL platform is designed for players who want to go on and play in college. So we also have players that aspire to play as a professional, but a lot of players will move on to go to college. Not as many as want to, but so our system was designed for that originally. They changed it to mirror the international game, and now they want to change it back because if you've been a track player, you would understand there's periods during the year. If you fall in one of these gaps where maybe half your team's in high school and half your team's out of school, it's really finding something that's going to challenge you in the same way. So when US Soccer started looking into this, they realized from a developmental standpoint we were falling behind. And it wasn't mirroring the academic system. For recruiting and sort of analysis later on, there were more kids that were dropping out of the game under the new system. So again, they basically have decided that we're going to go through a new August 1st cutoff. I think if you were listening when this first came out, they spoke about July 1st. And right away, I think people said, hey, July 1st is going to put more kids still being in that trapped sort of gap. So as of next year, we will be looking at an August 1st cutoff. So anybody born after August 1st will combine with the players that are born in the first half of the following year. So it does change our team somewhat significantly. In this presentation, we just mentioned how both U.S. Soccer and U.S. Club are supporting this. So this is the U.S. Soccer initiative. Basically, they want to have something that's going to be more appropriate to school, where they're going through the year and get a chance to play with their peers that they typically see. I mean, it's not obviously that far off to have somebody graded above or graded below, but this falls in line more in line, for players that probably want to play in college. And also, even if you're playing at a level where you're maybe not looking at going on and playing at a more competitive stage, you still get to be around people that you're in the classroom with every day. And from a just sort of a soccer growth system, that's going to be a healthier environment. So just over your policy, I've said it already, it's going to switch to August 1st, and then it's really going to combat that track player issue. I know right now, I think there's something like 19 girls, I think we heard today, right, within the ECNL and RL program that would be a track player. They're in 8th grade right now playing on U15 teams. I know on the boys side we have 12. So that's a lot of players that get sort of, waiting to see if they can get something competitive. Now, we've always done things. I know sometimes the girls' side is a little different. On the boys' side, they come back and they train with the U12 ECNL groups. So they still get that training, and some of them will play in games. The unfortunate reality is only 2 players get to play in those games. So if we have 12 that move back and train with those teams, maybe 2 played with ECNL, 2 played with RL, we got 8 kids not getting game time. So this is going to combat that issue. So again, what does it mean? We will have to reorganize teams. I know there's going to be a lot of questions at the end. I usually like to be very informal, bouncing back and forth, but I want to go ahead and get through this because a lot of the questions will be, hey, we're going to shake up our team. Now, I have been around. I did this same presentation 10 years ago in reverse, and I remember the shake up then, and there was a lot of worry heading into that year. Some teams got a lot stronger. Some teams got weaker. But at the end, once we got playing in the fall, it all worked out. To be honest, there was a lot of worry, I think, about nothing. And then when we got there, it turned out to be, a good change because there was sort of like new lines being drawn and new challenges. Players that maybe felt like they were a little bit out of the mix, all of a sudden we're back in the mix a little bit more. So it could be inspiring in its own way. But again, it's not going to be easy because there's going to be a lot of things to think about between now and tryouts. We're having those discussions. We're talking about, in age groups, how many kids are born after that set date so we can get an idea of numbers and what it's going to look like. So we're trying to be as proactive as we can. Obviously, this is the way it's going to work. So essentially, last year there's the grid that shows the birth year and then where you're shifting over and where you might be. And I'll give you a second to look at that. This is, again, some playmetrics. Yep, so you should be able to go back and look at it. But, there's going to be some kids that will, it's not that they're going down. So I'm going to clarify that. They would just hold in the current age group they're at. So if you're a U16 player right now and you're younger, you'll be in U16 again next year. And it may sound, I'm playing down, but you're really not. And some players who maybe at their growth, according to their sort of growth model right now, perhaps they were a little bit undersized. Maybe they were having a little trouble competing. Now all of a sudden they're going to be at the older end of that spectrum, and maybe that'll allow them to compete a little bit more. There will be other players that will be in reverse. Some players may have felt like they were top person on their team, and next year they'll be challenging against some kids that are a little bit older, a little more physical. But all those challenges are going to help each player in its own unique way. But at the end of the day, because of the transition to high school, it'll be what they're really most familiar with, and that's why we're speaking to the older group first. So, U.S. Club obviously is what we play under an ECNL and SECL. So just states how they've adopted it. Essentially everybody's adopted it at this point, just so you know. The only platform that's a holdout right now is MLS Next. They may stay birth year. The only reason why they'll stay birth year is because of the MLS academies wanting that for international soccer. So there's a very small percentage that move on and play with U.S. national teams. So a lot of those players are in MLS academies at the highest, probably highest level of the actual MLS team academies, not the non-MLS affiliated members of MLS Next. But it actually transitions well for them between their international schedule and their professional schedule. But that's a very small percentage of the number of kids that are playing the game. The bulk are going to be in school and playing club soccer. Right? So same for ECNL, because it is a platform that is designed to help players get identified for college soccer. Our curriculum, everything we do is really trying to get exposure for those kids at the right time. So if they want to go on and play college, they're going to have that opportunity. And so everything that falls in line with this mandate from U.S. Soccer is going to happen with ECNL too, because they're going to be very concerned about how it affects the college game. And I can tell you right now on the girls' side, because this will be a question probably we can come back early. On the boys' side, it shouldn't affect them much at all, because on the boys' side, they don't start recruiting men simply because they don't fully develop physically until they're about 20. They don't look at a player who's 15 because there's still a lot of changes physiologically that player's going to go through, not to mention fundamentally, tactically. So they don't want to make that decision too early, and then they don't really reach full potential. So they recruit much later. On the girls' side, women mature physically, mentally way before bigger boys, right? So by the time they're U17, now that's who they're going to be. Now not that they're not going to get better, so you can have a pretty good gauge on how they're going to transition to college soccer at that point. So there are going to be some girls who will leapfrog all the way past to the senior group, but be a junior. And for them, on the boys' side, that could be very good because they're 2 years exposure. But on the girls' side, a lot of times they're looking at 17s, they're going to miss that little period of 17s. So we're going to have to do some extra work to help identify those players. Because there will be some players that are born late July that'll be juniors still, but fall into the older age group. All right? So hopefully that makes sense. And then ECNL continued we left this in just because it's a statement on the website. But we were waiting to hear a little bit more about the U19 age group. Would they possibly do a U18? Essentially, they decided not to change the number of teams because that would add a 7th ECNL team. They figure since we have the RL program now off and running, that they're not going to add an extra age group in. So it'll be U13, U14, U15, U16, U17, and U19. So you'll still have that double age group at the end. There is more talk about actually U11, U12 is one in. We'll see how that goes. All right. So just as I mentioned, we understand that this is going to be something that there's going to be a lot of questions, and we want to make sure we do everything we can to dot all the I's for you. We held this meeting now. They're filming it today, so it'll be online for anybody that missed it. And then also we're going to hold another one. This is geared more towards the older players, and we'll do one more for the academy players as well. So there's a couple links that I put on the website. They were just where I did my research to find out kind of what was the current sort of information out there. I mean, I looked all over different things that had been sent to me and things that I've read that other organizations have put out. But both of those I thought were pretty basic but informative and can be helpful if you have want to know a little deeper details on the change. So the key message is just the benefit between playing club with the same people you're probably in the classroom with, going to be maybe a little bit healthier environment. I don't think we've had a problem here, particularly with like bullying and things like that. But there has been discussions about a kid who's just a year older in school, grade above sometimes, maybe taking advantage of the situation. We haven't had hardly any issues, but from a mental health perspective and a competitive perspective, it's going to help us better under the academic system. And the consistency with high school, again, to know that that's the same person I'm going to be graduating with over there too. So, and then last, the long-term development. They're going to talk again probably about, they're going to have to rearrange Q1s through Q4s, and they'll talk about the ones that are on the back half. How do we take care of them to make sure they're getting their needs met if they're physiologically a little bit behind. As of right now, ECNL, none of our platforms have a bio band. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So in the MLS Next, they have a couple of players, if they're physically, maybe we would say a -1, where a 0 is basically you're physically about where you should be for an age. So you see the kid out there sometimes, it's like this, and he's playing U12, we would say that's maybe a +2. He looks 2 years older than he is, but he's not. So that's a +2. We have some -1s, some -2s. There's programs really that let them play down in a younger age group, but under US Club and US Soccer, you can't do that now. So MLS Next with the MLS Academies were the only ones I would permit it. So essentially, if you are a little smaller, you're going to, according to the new age, it's just going to be like the ones that were smaller before. You're going to have to hopefully utilize your skills in different ways. Find a way to maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. So essentially, I've covered everything as far as what we know right now. The biggest thing was how we take this and put it into UFA sort of policy and procedures heading into tryouts. So I know that's where a lot of your questions are going to come in. When we reviewed some of the questions, obviously one is, that comes up, is going to be, will my child have to play down? That was one of them, you know. So again, it's not playing down. Our job is to try and create the most competitive environments we can, so we want the best teams we can. We want kids to play age appropriate. So if you are a junior, we want you playing with the other juniors. If you have a birthday where you're born August 1st, and that means you could play down, but in school, you're in school with those players that are really, we probably would recommend staying with your grade. Now, there may be situations where they can do a little bit of both. Register here in Club Pass. You know, where the real question comes into play, how does their role change based on each one? Are you playing maybe a central midfield role with the younger ones and getting a lot of the ball and really maximizing their development? Or are you maybe playing a diminished role coming off the bench? Which one's going to be better for your development? And you have to look at that individually too, because sometimes something can be said for playing up and dealing with the physicality. You know, even though maybe you're not getting as much game time, I'm a big believer in training time. I think, you know, some kids will miss 2 days of training but never miss a game. In training, I can get you 4 times as many touches on the ball than you can get in a game. So I know it doesn't have the same passion, but for me, from a developmental perspective, I think I can do more. I can make a greater impact with the training. So essentially, that may be something that's good for one player, but not necessarily good for the next. So on those ones that are really close, that they're kind of special, we're going to have to look at those on a case-by-case basis. Our recommendation, though, is to go in with your class. Where we have some challenges, there are some players, on the boys' side, I don't know how many on the girls' side, but academically, let's say they're a junior, but according to the birth chart, they should be a senior. You can't play down, as I said. You have to play in your assigned age group. That's by the minimum. Now, players may be able to play up, because nobody can technically play down. So if you're born July 31st, and you're in a younger class, unfortunately, you have to still play with the olders because you've got that last day. I had a June 9th birthday. I forgot my own birthday. June 9th birthday, and under the old system, it used to be July 1. I had a bad birthday. And used to your age groups. The thing is, I was fortunate enough to be a big kid early, so when I played up, nobody noticed. You know, until everybody started catching up, and it wasn't as effective. But at the end of the day, I do remember that was detrimental to some kids. Now, at least we're looking at single-year age groups, and when you're right on that cusp, it just depends on where you're at. We hope that a lot of our coaches look for the best soccer players, not maybe the kids that are just the biggest. I know I traditionally have a lot of small players within my teams because I want soccer players to play the kind of soccer that I like to coach. And sometimes that impacts us a little bit negatively on the scoreboard, but at the end of the day, I think it makes the best soccer players. So that's one of the biggest things we saw. And again, all the other platforms are changing. It doesn't matter if you're playing USYSA, if you're playing in US Club, you're still going to end up with the same birth year configuration. The only thing will be the MLS academies. So I think that's it pretty quickly, I hope. Plenty of time for questions. Sorry, I'm still turning my whole body. Now I think it's a good time maybe to just reach out and ask you if you have any questions, because some of them we can maybe attach some specifics to. Anybody? Yes? Yeah, so we're not going to tell you that you definitely cannot play up like with the kids you've been playing with. We may say we recommend you playing here. You may want to try out there. But the big thing is that doesn't guarantee that you can make that team, right? Because every year we go through a tryout process, and this year will be no different. We'll come in, we'll have a tryout, and some kids make it a second year, next year, and we do have some kids that fall off. There's always a little bit of changeover. So we may be facing some of that again. What you have to consider is, like, I'll just use an example. Let's say the 09 boys. I got the 11 boys and the 10 boys. So let's say the 10 boys, the older ones that are coming back for ECNL, they want to try out for ECNL next year. They'll go to U17 like normal because they're at the older age of the 2010s. They're going to go up and they'll say, oh yeah, I want to stay up with that group. What you sometimes forget about, the bottom half of the U9s are also going to be staying there and trying out. So that changes the entire dynamic, you know, especially if you're a unique position like, say, a goalkeeper. So that's one of the things we're looking at. How does the goalkeeper shake out? Is there going to be changes here? Because if somebody may be playing on an RL team who's actually younger, when he tries out the following year and he's one of the oldest, is that going to be more impactful as a player than an ECNL player, right? Well, a current ECNL player. Does that make sense? Does that help answer your question? So it's not a no, but you might have to look at what the makeup. We had talked about maybe doing a couple, just like training opportunities to put the kids either late in the spring, where we'll put the kids in the group that they'd be trying out with, just according to their age, regardless where they want to go. Just put in there, just divide them up according to age and do a little sort of like a combine. And let them give them a chance to see what else is out there so they can have a little bit of a heads up before they head into trials. Because it's going to be something that we're going to have to look deep into as well. Because like I know there's some kids on the 09 RL team that are good, they're younger, so that's going to be interesting. Do they move up and become ECNL players next year? Is there a realignment with that? So we're going to do as much research as we can as we, I plan to go to more high school games this year than I have gone in the past, and just trying to see some of the kids a little bit in some settings to, where they feel comfortable and see how that might shake up. So we don't make decisions. I don't make decisions like way in advance or anything, but I do like to have a good idea of what I'm looking at heading into trials. Yeah. And so I think a lot of our coaches are going to have to do a lot of research to be ready for that. Yes? Excuse me? That skip grades. So you're technically a senior, but you could be playing with the juniors. That's what I'm saying. On some of those, we're going to have to look at those on a case-by-case basis. Our recommendation might be to play with your grade. But if it's one where, let's say, you're kind of on the bubble between ECNL and RL, and if you go up, you're going to play RL, but if you stay down and play ECNL, we want to say, hey, play here, and then we may have to do some extra things to help market you for a college program. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's where I think a coach has to be fully aware of if there is somebody who's in that junior age group, U17 age group, but is actually a senior in school. I know I have one on the 2011s. He's younger, but he's in the grade above. So a recommendation is probably going to be play up for him. Looking at it right now, but I have to see how he compares towards maybe the younger 10 RLs to know truthfully how to best advise him. Yeah. Yes?
With all the changes, is the May 1st like recruiting time still the same?
Yeah, I think we're like the only club that abides by that. Yeah, it's still supposed to be May 1st. I think there's a signing day now for like ECNL Nationals of March 1st. So you can only sign 2 players after March 1st now to stop some of it. But unfortunately, I feel like all these things are on the honor system. And in my time in youth soccer, I thought there was more honorable people when I came into it, just to say. So I get burned frequently because of it.
Will UFA be making recommendations to the kids and express those for them if they want to stay with the team? Will that be communicated to them?
Yeah, I think when we come back in the spring after high school, that little month window, that's going to be where a lot of those conversations take place. You see when they come back then, what we're looking at, we'll have a good idea. That's why we feel like some combines then would help, because sometimes a player in their head, they're thinking, oh, I don't want to play down in U16 again. But then when they say who else is there, they go, oh, this might be a good team. It might be worth me sticking around. So we'd like for them to get a chance to see that, to really appreciate it. It'll be fine. And yeah, you might be with a different group. But when you go into college, you're with a different group. And how do you survive? When I came to college for almost 2 decades, and I had some patented speeches. By the time I got my 5th year of college coaching, I had a speech for the first day, a speech for the second day, a speech for the third day, because I knew what they were going through mentally. By the 4th day, that's when your body starts to break down. So I give them a speech about, when they're out of college and they've got a family and they're trying to feed the baby, what kind of man they're going to be. But on the first day, it's about big fish. It's about big fish. So I go, look, you just came out of the pond where you were the big fish. And I'll go around the room and I'll say, look, all-star, all-star, all-star. Now you're surrounded by big fish. What are you going to do? So how are you going to behave to that? Are you going to throw in the towel if you have to really work harder in the first few weeks to prove yourself? Or are you going to keep fighting and see what you can do? I do this whole thing about if you can point the finger back at yourself, that then you'll make it in whatever you do. So I had these little speeches. So that's essentially where we're at right now. They're going to be surrounded by some different people, and it'll be a nice little challenge in preparation for when you go to college. If you're going to play, because you're going to all of a sudden be somewhere else where, you're in a truly competitive environment, and they're trying to replace you, and you're trying to make sure that don't happen. So how are you going to react to that environment? And it helps maybe show them that, hey, it'll be all right. Just got to get transition through this period. Anything else?
Do you have idea when trials are going
They'll be the same, pretty much they are every year. It'll be that, as you said, last week and a half of May and June. They'll be the same time pretty much every year. We do our It's around the 17th, 18th of May is when we do the Extreme Cup.
Yes.
And then usually they have the younger tryouts after that. Yeah, so
Academy is
we'll do a week
always
after, that's the youngers, and then so the older ones are come, I think it's right after, is that Memorial Day weekend or Labor Day? No, Memorial Day. Yeah, I think usually right then. We start that Tuesday usually.
So I'm a little confused because my daughter, so the school cutoff is at the end of August, I believe, not the beginning of August.
Correct.
So why are we?
Because when they were putting this together, they weren't thinking about just Georgia, they were looking nationwide. You know, and I know when I was young, we used to start school like after Labor Day weekend. They won't do it. We used to finish though the first week of June, and they've kind of shifted everything. But some schools, they're all different, just like you have trouble with spring breaks around here, you know, when's our spring break, when's our fall break. So I think that's a comfortable way to say that that will help the majority, but there's still going to be some that fall within the cracks. Right?
My daughter will fall in
She falls in the cracks.
she's a sophomore, but she's the age of the, she would be on the lower.
Yeah.
Lower eight.
Correct. So that's something we might, you know, that's what we have, this is the people we have to look at case by case. Is it better just to stay up with her grade or to stay down? Now, if she's going all the way to U19, staying down would be better for sure, right? Because there are a lot of times we're looking at U17s. Not that they're not looking at U19s, but they spend a lot of time looking at U17s and on the female side. I know that when I was recruiting for college, beginning of senior year for men, beginning of junior year for women. That's just the way I recruited. Yes?
As a club, are you expecting a lot of movement, like between clubs, like players coming in?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, we anticipate growth every year. There's people that I think see that we are thoughtful in what we do here. We do have a methodology and some people that want to be a part of that. So we always attract some people from the outside. But I think a lot of clubs spread misinformation to their benefit. So they're saying, oh, don't go there, don't leave here, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I know we have a big club, which means we have depth, which allows us to transition smoother than other places that maybe don't have the same amount of depth. I often say on our teams, our top 7 players, you know, are above the level. But after maybe number 8, the next 20 players a lot of times are really close. And trying to decide the back half of the ECNL team and the front half of the RL team is really hard. They're interchangeable. 3 months later, they could be completely reversed. So that depth, I think, is going to help us this year as we go through it.
Will the tryouts be based on academic year?
Yeah, well, it won't be necessarily based on the academic year. We're supposed to go hand in hand, but it'll be based on the August 1st. It'll be based on the new age criteria.
So my daughter is technically would drop down a year. Can she opt to stay? Does she opt to stay, or can she opt to try out for the team that she's on now?
Yeah, I think that May is really the time that we need to look at those things. That's what you need to really talk to our coach and see what the recommendations are. Because we may go to someone and say, look, we have 1 goalkeeper in this age that we consider at ECNL level, and we have 3 at this age. We want you to stay here. You know what I mean? So there could be situations like that, but there may be something where, okay, your daughter plays a 6, and there's 4 studs that all play 6. Now, they can't all play there, so we got to move some people around. Maybe it's not the best idea to go up that year. And it also, you have to look at long term, what about college recruiting? You know, so, because that's if at the ECNL level or RL level. Obviously, Champions League level, there are kids that can get opportunities. There's opportunities there. It's whether they're willing to take the opportunities. I know that I really push kids to go try and play D2, D3, especially with the new rules that are falling in place. I said, get in the door, prove yourself, and then transfer. You know, I would have never told somebody that 20 years ago, but under the new system, that's what my recommendation is. I played D2, top 10 D2 school, and I had a fantastic college career. Guys that was like being in a military unit, I'm friends with to this day because we kind of suffered together, you know. But I was very much a part of the program from day one. And for me, that was everything. You know, I wanted that support group right when I got there. I didn't want to go to a big school where I might get lost in the numbers. And so I recommend that for a lot of kids, especially during the first 2 years while they're getting ready to court. So there's opportunities for kids to play D2, D3, but we get a lot to go, oh no, if it's not D1, I don't want to play. And that's a shame because I think they're missing out a lot. We have some that go play D1, but a lower level D1 that doesn't play great soccer when they could have gone to D2 and played at a program that really plays an attractive brand that they would have had a good time with. We're getting more and more starting to say yes to D3, and they're all coming back saying, hey, I'm part of the program. And we've got some D1 kids that are saying, hey, coach, can you help me transfer? I don't like it here. So, yeah, D1's a full-time job. Yes?
Yeah, you mentioned these combine sessions that you'd have before tryouts. How many are you expecting to have?
Again, you know, that's where we've got to kind of figure it out. We talked about maybe doing one for first 2 layers and then do another one for next 2 layers, you know, but, so the coaches can be both. Because if we do, let's say we do 4 layers with, you know, first team to the 14th, it might be so many kids it ends up not being beneficial for us to see. We want it to be beneficial for the players and the coaches. So we might divide it up into 2 groups. And then I don't know that we would try and tackle the whole club in one weekend, maybe do some older ones, maybe do some academy ones earlier before the kids come back from high school. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
Yes, it might be a silly question, but it's more of a generic one. I mean, you said you've done that 10 years ago. Can you recall, like in the days, if you still...
I remember 10 years ago better than last week.
any impact on the team chemistry, for example?
You know, I don't think so. You know, there was one group, I had 2002 girls, that when I put this team together, we didn't have a lot returning at our club in that age group. So I had to bring in some girls from all over. I was on the girls' side as the girls' directors. And I think our first game, we got smacked by someone 6-0. You know, it looked like it was going to be bad. But as we got to mid-season, we started tying. By the end of the year, that ended up being a fantastic team. Probably the best soccer playing team at the club at the end of the year. It just took a little time for them to get to know each other and that, and really appreciate, maybe understand each other. So, I mean, no matter how you slice up the game, you got to have time together to really build a good team, you know? And there's going to be changes. So there may be a couple little hiccups at the beginning, but once they get to know the group, they're going to be happy. You know, I tell kids that, you know, let's say you and I play at rival clubs, and I play up front and you play center back. There's a good example. He just kicked me all the time. So we, this kid might say, oh, I hate playing them. They got so-and-so. It's not really that you hate them. You actually respect them because you know that you're going to come and get a really good game that day. You know, and you should be excited about that. But I say you never know when you're going to be on the same team. That guy could be your worst enemy, you think. And next thing you know, you're playing at the same college as your roommates. You know, we always talk about soccer being a small world, right? So it's just going to open up some new people. That's why I still love when some people play ODP sometimes at younger ages. Get to know some of the kids. Realize that they're not the enemy, they're other competitors. We're all trying to do the same thing.
It's just that it seems to me that it's a fairly short season compared to...
Yeah. And also think about our design is player-centric. Our curriculum, things we do, we actually are taking the player first. Like sometimes we'll have a team training, and 2 kids from a lower team will come in training, and parents say, why are those kids here? Well, they're part of our program, and they deserve opportunities to play up too and get challenged. So we're not thinking about the team, we're thinking about these kids individually and how far we can take them, right? So we're not team-centric in our approach, but I know a lot of times parents will be, because they maybe friends group, things like that, and like, you got to be, but it's not like they're moving to France, you know, they're still going to be around, you know, you just may be playing on Saturday and Sunday with a little bit different group. Yeah. Yes?
So with this, obviously being a big change in all the families and every single club trying to decide what they're going to do for next year, are you guys looking to announce coaches much earlier?
We have mentioned that in the meeting, maybe trying to do it a little bit earlier than normal, but you know, I think every year we're pretty close early, but then it's other layers. You know, it's like, do we just do top layer first, and the second layer and go down, or we wait until everybody's in line? There's also the factor that sometimes we announce a coaching change, it can be disruptive to the current season, and we don't want to do that either. Again, thinking about the players themselves. Is that going to
Well,
disrupt?
high school age.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we've talked about trying to do it earlier every year. You know, so the intention is yes, it will happen. In practice, you know, I mean, like, because we may get there, you know, sometimes we've had new coaches that want to come in and we're bringing them in. But we can't announce it because if we announce it yet, they're still working on it. They got to finish out the contract before they come, right? So sometimes that happens and we hold the whole thing because we can't announce everything at once. So we don't do it. But I mean, ideally, we want to announce it early because we want our coaches out there looking earlier than normal to try and figure out, hey, who's staying, who's going, who's moving up, who doesn't want to. Who doesn't want to stay in their current age group? You know, we got to have some of those conversations.
Jason, what happened to the nationals? You use the same, you will keep the same team to go to the nationals?
Yeah, that won't change this year. That won't change. We'll finish out this year the same as normal. This would all start with tryouts. Really, we're just going to do a couple of things early before tryouts, so they're not coming on day 1 of tryout and familiar with, you know. So we want to give them a little bit of an idea. The kids know a lot. They've asked some questions. He said, they're finding out so-and-so's at the younger age, in the age group, someone else, and they're like, ooh, it would be good. So that's good. They're thinking about that and excited about it. Anybody else? Yep.
So you're clearly trying to line everybody up ahead of tryouts so that everybody kind of knows where to go. Once tryouts start, will there be okay, this is what's actually showed up, this is what we have? Will there be, do you expect any kind of movement then?
I mean, we always go back every night. We go back as coaches and we have conversations. And sometimes, we may say, hey, look, he or she's not going to make this team. They might be great on that team. So let's have a conversation tomorrow and tell them they're better than them. There may be reverse that. There may be some kids who are second guessing coming because they're maybe on a third team. And now, because they've got a younger birthday, you might be coming in to be an RL player. Is that something exciting? No. Or is that coming to a level they don't want? So if you have those kids that are close, those are really going to be the hardest part. Is when they're close that we got to, they're born in July, or born in August, when they're right at the freshman. But I feel like that there's going to be plenty of time to have some of those conversations that they'll be well prepared and informed for trials. Yes?
Will there be a plan for the track players for the U15s for the spring?
Yes. Boys or girls?
Girls.
Girls.
There's, like you said, there's
Yeah, sure. So there's a bunch of them. So we actually were discussing it today. By next week, we're going to have something that's probably going to go out to the parents. It just, every year is different. So we like to say we tack it the same every year, but some years you might only have 6 kids. And then that would be different than obviously this year. Same thing with the boys. I think we had 8 last year, we had 12 this year. So we may have to look at something different. We still like to do that Wednesday, Sunday training. On the boys' side, I don't know. See, are you guys doing that on the girls' side still? Wednesday, in March, doing Wednesday, Sunday? With the, so we with the ECNL kids and our L kids, we actually say if they want to come, we basically do this voluntary practice on Wednesday night and Sunday, so it doesn't conflict with high school. They can come back and be together a little bit. And when we do that, on the boys' side, we can
only train on Wednesday. They didn't play a high school game on.
Yeah, if they play high school game on Tuesday, we don't want to see them unless they want to come hang out and see their friends other than that.
Well, these are track players, so they have.
Yeah, what I'm saying, I know what I'm saying is when we're doing that training, they're going to get to be there, part of it.
Got it.
So like the 12 kids that are currently in the 2011 age group, they'll be able to come on Wednesday night and still be with the people that they're going to play maybe some postseason showcases with, right? May and things like that. So they're still going to get a chance to train with them. We put U15s, U16s together, and U17s and 19s and do 2 sessions. And then on Sunday, same thing. Usually we get a better turnout Sunday because they play Friday night, recover a little bit Saturday and Sunday. We mostly just play on Sundays. Just a little warm up, maybe some technical, throw a ball, just let them have a good time.
But
Not
that would
really
be
trying to coach too much.
sorry. The hope would be, that would be supplemental, right? Because
That would be supplemental to something else.
Okay.
So the question is, like if there's just 6 of them, we're going to put them with the 12s, and they're going to try to 12 ECNL. But when there's more of them, you can't stick 18, 19 in there. That's going to, so there's probably going to be a separate trainer group. But I can't say for certain because that's basically something that's being discussed this week. And then I think we will have a plan by next Monday and it'll be released.
Awesome.
Yeah. Ryan, anything to expand on that?
Well, the girls has 2 tracks, so we cannot just put them in the team, but we're working on
Yeah, we're going to come up with something so they can each out.
swing season and some games.
We don't want to be fall behind. And there's track players also on the U19 teams.
Right.
So we're trying to see what we can do with, not for the high school, but post high school. When like 17s go to the event, they can play ECNL as a track player. And I believe they can play RL as a track player. So we'll let some of those kids that are juniors in high school, but in U19 now, can do 17s. But we got to also, got to consider how much space is on that team. Because there's kids that are already on that team. So there's a few factors to consider. Anything else? Yes.
So just summarize, unless you're an outlier, you probably need to go play with your new age group.
That would be our recommendation because we're trying to build the strongest teams we can. We want to be competitive, and so there's going to be kids that are born in January that are the oldest. Now they're in the middle of the year, and so whatever age group they're in, I mean, it's not like they have any latitude either way. They have to go to that age group. So there's going to be a shakeup. So those are, I think, the no-brainers. It's just really the ones that are in that gap that's going to require a little bit of extra attention. But everybody else, and again, we're hopeful that all these things match up. I think we've been good about not just, like I said, picking big kids. So every team has about a third to even half right down the middle. So when we go to reshuffle next year, we're going to be in a really good position to build big teams. It's just kids getting to know maybe someone else a little bit differently. We hope that also our style of play helps kids transition quickly too. We don't just start over from scratch. Yes.
Sorry, just to clarify for me as well. But, so my daughter's birthday is in 2010, right? So she just is on that, but she's a sophomore
So
right
she can
now.
play U16 again next year if she wants.
But she's, yes,
But
but
she's
she's
a
a
sophomore.
sophomore, but we want her with her grade level, and I don't want her going down to a
Correct.
freshman.
So that's what I'm saying. Those are the ones, I have one of those too. I have a couple of those. So those are the ones we're going to have to look at. Like, is it necessary to be there? Because positionally, I'm not going to say it's not about your daughter. Let's say someone's born August 2nd, and by going up and playing with the older kids, they end up moving down a team. That's something they really want to do. So we got to make sure we look at that where they're going to be from a developmental standpoint and from a talent level standpoint. But one of the kids, I would recommend that he stays on the younger roster, that trains and plays here, but able to get extra games there when needed. You know, so again, he can get a little bit of best of both.
My thing is like my daughter's a dual athlete, right?
She's what?
She's
Dual
a
athlete. Yeah.
So she plays for high school for flag football and then UFA for summer.
Correct, yeah.
And so we're already so invested in multiple sports, right? And so we were following, working in education. We went by that September 1st for the state of Georgia that we were born on September 5, on or before September 1st.
Correct.
And so that's why we enrolled her in kindergarten going by the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of thinking like, we want her playing at her grade level and not down because we've always played.
Correct. So, I mean, the idea, I think we've discussed, we're trying to keep them very appropriate. So that they're being identified for college, especially the first two layers, very appropriate. But there are situations we might say, hey, because of where they're at as a team, they may want to consider this. That's where we have that conversation with that month gap. All right? But, a lot of kids that are that close, usually they're maybe, it's not going to be a problem.
Like developmentally mature, but she's.
Again, it just depends on case by case. There's going to be some kids that, I've got a couple of players that are born in July, and they're very small. They're good players, but they get bullied right now. And now they're about to get bullied even more, I think, so, but I know that if they're patient and they make it to the other side, they're going to get a man strength eventually. It won't matter that they're small. They'll have other advantages within the game, and they'll be fine. But getting them through those years can be challenging for us.
But basically, at the end of the day, though, she still has the ability to play with her grade level.
Correct. Because like I said, I've got some of those too, and one of them I'm pretty certain is going to play up because I don't see his role changing now, but I don't know until I get there and I see, hey, who else is coming in? What do some of these kids in the older age group look like when they mix in? I have to see that fully to give a full answer. That's why we can't answer those now. But during that month, that's going to give us a chance. And again, where kids are at today might be completely different in May, especially on boys' side.
So we need to get where you're going to be.
I think we're not, those are going to be tryouts, so those are just I actually want to be for the kids to see, but the coaches as well.
That gives you an idea of what someone's very, for example, my kid, he's going to the club, but he came from Louisiana. He's in 8th grade, but technically he should be in 7th grade, but he's ahead because he.
Yeah. Well, but he can still play down, and if you feel that's what he's for development, play down, play with the same age group again, and then when he gets closer to a senior, then you can make that decision whether he wants to have him. I think, you're 13, you're 14, I would play in your grade program. That's my recommendation, but again, there are going to be some boys that if they go ahead and stay where they can, they might get more on the ball, so that's why it's a tough call. I will tell you this, I know there was a trend for a while for starting male athletes a year late in school. So that there was mental health reasons for that, but obviously a lot of athletics, support when they want to play traditional American sports that require a little bit more physiological development. So, you got a lot of kids who want to play American football and, basketball, maybe they hold back a year. So there's some of those kids that we have in soccer as well, and they're going to be in that tough spot because they're going to have to play up because that's how old they are. They can't play down into their grade, so that we're going to have to do what we can to help them go the recruiting process when they get to be a senior academic. So those boys, there's a few of those will get, and I don't know if they do it as much now, but I know when I was young, second grade, there's always a lot of kids that held back in second grade. you know, I don't know if it was about that great, but, you know, they had extra year of development, physically, really helped them when it comes to school activities, you know? And so I think people started seeing that, started utilizing that to their advantage. In hindsight, I was hoping to let my kids, to be honest. Okay. All right. If anything else comes up, I mean, you can't miss me walking around, feel free to stop me, especially like when it gets a little closer. You know, we wanted to do it early because the reason we want to showcase it in the high school, we won't see everybody as much. But I will be out at a few high school meetings. The reality is you can contact us anytime. You know, Velco, Steven's the boys director. Obviously, Velco is the academy director, is also the club DOC. So he's a good contact to go through, and then you can email me anytime. I'm a terrible typist, so I'm slow at it. I don't email back immediately, but I do email back eventually. Unless you're sending me tournament questions for this weekend in 2 weeks, because there's 150 a day, I can answer all those.
Sorry, I was late, so I'm not sure who really answered this question, but have you guys been evaluating these teams early on?
Well,
Have an idea of what you already have?
Yeah, I think we're just really going to look at the birth dates now to see how they would shake up. We don't want to evaluate somebody now for a tryout that's going to happen in last week of May, 1st of June, right? So we just want to get an idea of where we're at from a numbers perspective, and then do a lot more when they come back from high school to start getting an early look. But I never, you know, I've talked to some kids a little bit before trials, hey, you plan to come back and things like that, but I don't make my decision until day one. That'd be your day one, and I make my decision. And that's how I operate for my trials. I need to pick day one because there's a team behind me that has to pick. If I wait till day 3 of trials, I mess them up. So we got to order. So I always go until day 1. I tell kids, you're probably in, but you know, if Messi shows up and he's got a person who says he's U16, we're going to pick him. You know, so we just never know. And so I tell them, I'm 99% certain maybe with some people. And then other people, I tell them they're on the bubble. I told some kids they're on the bubble this year, and they all made the team because we got the trials. They initially it still makes sense. You know, so, but I want to be honest with them up front. I'll probably tell some kids the same. Hey, you might be on the bubble in this age group, but if you fall in this age group, I think you're going to probably likely make the team. You know, and so I try to be as transparent as I can, but there's no definitives. You get there at tryouts, you're out of trial. It can change. You know? I'm sorry.
Will the combines be open to just the UFA players, or will that be for anybody?
The combine?
Yeah.
I think probably we talk about just inside first. Yeah, at one point. Yeah, just so we get an idea of what we have before we start reaching out. But we still have, we do our ECNL ID clinic as well. It's chaotic, but you know, a lot of times with that, it's you know, an opportunity for maybe you see a down in the rough for some of the kids that are on lower teams that might pop out. A lot of times we know the ECNL kids, but there's also kids maybe that come in from other clubs. That gives them an extra chance to see what we're about a little bit. So that was more you know, an open thing that they can come to. And then the combine will probably be just internally because unless there's somebody that's like moved to the area that plans to be here next year, that would be like an exception. Yeah. Anybody else? I know it's a tough presentation.
Thank you.
But if it comes up, just reach out to Dennis and we're going to have more information for the year. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.